Well, we thought it was long enough break, didn't we, really? We'd missed each other terribly during this process. And we've been talking about getting back together and doing an album together for a number of years. And when the window of opportunity presented itself, when Lisa could wrestle herself away from a busy calendar, year in, year out, working on film music, and then we could set some time for it, and that's what happened, really. That was it. And then, as you were, really, we just sort of like continued where we left off. You know, we didn't feel like there's a huge body of time that had passed. To be honest, I don't feel time in that respect. I feel time as almost a static context at times. So yeah, and here we are.
We thought on that particular tour that we might be able to write things on the road as well. I mean, we've always liked going. There's nothing like the stage to really bring the work to a place of where you can really sort of massage it and get back into touch with what it's all about. But we did have the idea at that stage that we might write things, but the tour's it's so north, you know, in your creativity to be on stage. So much is taken to put those concerts together that to take yourself to the other part that is to actually isolate yourself to a point where you can be intimate with the work at long periods of time to create new things. The touring doesn't really work for the way that we work. It doesn't really suggest that environment.
And by the end of that tour, we were really quite tired, and
we're exhausted.
We didn't have the inclination to go on and do a studio album, because we would have had to have done it from scratch, and it would have meant another 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hard for Lee, because she lives in Australia, and our studio of choice that we use is at Quiver in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's harder for her to stay away from family for those long periods of time.
Exactly.
So it just sort of petered out at the end and left us with a feeling of incompletion. And here we are.
I think we always knew that the work, something would happen, because the work just doesn't disappear. That love of the work doesn't disappear. There were times when I really grieved the loss of not being able to, you know, when you're doing cinema, you start something and you think, God, this is really special, this piece, you know, but you're not actually able to take it to the next stage. And that's something that has always been mandatory with the way that we've worked together, is that we've always taken it to the next stage and always taken it to its absolute potential. And I think that's the thing, that you start starving from being able to get things to that point of absolute final excellence.
Like in film music.
Yeah, that sometimes it's cut short, and you sometimes feel that, you know, God, this is one of the best pieces I've ever done. I'd love to take this away, and you're not able to pursue it in that sense, or it might be the very thing that people don't want to use because it's a little too beautiful and creating a little bit too much attention to itself, as opposed to working as the creative team with everything else within that context. So those frustrations come, you know, and you sort of thirst to want to sort of just be able to really, you know, get in there and roll your sleeves up and bring this piece to its true potential. Where it's, because the work that we do, it's not about, they're not little stories about, you know, having your heart hurt by a companion or whatever. I mean, they're about the universe, the stars, philosophers, history, environments, stories of the heart, of course, but poetry. You know, there's all sorts of things that are exciting that are manifest within the work.
Yeah, it's not pop music.
You know. I think too that people forget that, you know, with the work that we do, that because of our families and children and what have you, you know, it's not just the music that requires your attention. And I think that was a huge contribution to the fact that geographically we were living in separate places, because once you start having children, you want to be with their grandparents. And that was what motivated me to move to Australia, which created a distance then. But with the internet, we were able to sort of, you know, Brendan contacted me during the bushfires, and suddenly we're sort of like everything, the proximity sort of narrowed again, that there wasn't that extraordinary distance.
Always mental.
Yeah, you have to be in the same room. You know, it's amazing. A really good example is you can work on something. Like in my own experience, I've worked on something, say, with film, and I've thought, God, I'm so excited about this piece. I can't wait for someone to hear it. And the minute the director pulls up in the driveway, you know it's wrong. Just their presence there tells you, oh, this isn't right. And I get the same thing with Brendan. I have to be in the same room with him. I have to draw off that. It's something quite abstract and fragile that happens.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, if you're collaborating on something, you have to be in the same room. But I thought that was a kind of philosophical question.
Sorry.
So, but yeah.